Broadcasting from the ARN Racing Studios in Southern California, a turn for media company, ARN Los Angeles. This is ARN, the American Racing Network, the Motorsports Authority. Now,
drivers, start your engine!
You're shifting gears on ARN with Alan Bailey.
Well, there goes the neighborhood.
You name it, we got it. NASCAR.
Kyle Busch, the 2015 NASCAR Sprint Cup champion.
Yeah, you guys are awesome!
IndyCar.
Scott Dixon not only wins in Sonoma, but wins the 2015 championship.
We win on the tiebreak.
Incredible performance.
Drag racing.
Pop the corks, Antron Brown is the champion for the second time in his career.
Supercross.
Ryan Dungey becomes the 2015 Monster Energy AMA Supercross champion.
And so much more. So get ready. You're shifting gears on ARN with Alan Bailey.
Back and better than ever. You're shifting gears right here on ARN, the Motorsports Authority. I'm Alan Bailey. I want you involved in this conversation, in this action-packed edition of Shifting Gears on Monday, January 25th, 2016. Shifting Gears number 304 coming at you from Southern California at The Alan Bailey, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Also, you can use the hashtag ARNRace in order to get in on the program today. Man, where do I begin? I'm still shaking over that 250 battle that we saw down in Anaheim with Cooper Webb taking it over Christian Craig. My God, that is why I love racing. If you ever have any friend or anybody that says racing is not really a sport and it's kind of boring, do me a favor. Just show them Anaheim 3 2016, Cooper Webb, Christian Craig. That was a battle. It only lasted 3 or 4 laps, but it felt like it lasted the entire race because that, my friends, was an amazing battle. That is why I love racing. We're going to be talking about that and a lot of other stuff, but before we do that, we got to get everything kicked off with today's Hot Topics. We start with Ryan Dungey out in Anaheim. Dungey winning for the second time in 2016, 2 of 3, and just an important stat, the first rider in Supercross to win 2 races that year has gone on to win the championship every single year. Interesting stat. Ryan Dungey did it last year. He did it again this year. First 2 wins. Might win the championship. Dungey won Anaheim 3. It was Chad Reed who came in second again. Might once again be the story of the night. We'll talk about that. Ken Roczen coming back after a not so dismal, not so great start, let's just say, to finish third on the night. And yeah, we're going to hear from both Chad Reed and Ken Roczen about their nights respectfully and their podium finishes out in Anaheim. Cooper Webb honestly had an epic 250 battle with Christian Craig, coming out on top with that one. We'll break that down for you. And in the NASCAR community, Regan Smith to drive the number 7 Tommy Baldwin racing car in 2016, just days after we found out that Alex Bowman is out. But don't feel bad for Bowman. He is racing for JR Motorsports part-time, filling in for the Superstar team in the Xfinity Series. But Bowman finding out on Twitter that he didn't have a ride full-time for 2016. We'll get his reaction on that one. Tony Stewart making headlines again, but not for the reasons that he usually does. Out at the Charlotte Media Days last week, he actually called out Brian France publicly. And was he right? Was he wrong? We'll talk about it, and what exactly did he call the series chairman out for this time. Kurt Busch is considering running the 100th running of the Indianapolis 500. We'll give you his reasonings for not running it on top of his reasons for actually running it this season. Alan Johnson going to John Force Racing. He's going to be tuning Brittany Force's top fueler in 2016. We'll hear from Alan and just what's going on behind the scenes and whose parts exactly is he going to be tuning in 2016. Plus, we're going to have health updates on Trey Canard, who had a very, very, very bad night out in Anaheim. No broken bones, but not exactly the start of the Supercross season that Trey Canard wanted. Plus, Dean Wilson, you remember last year, kicked off a great start, only to have a broken ACL that sidelined him for most of 2015. He twisted his knee, MRI today. What did it reveal? We'll have that later on in the program as well. Plus, another rider out for the season in 2016 for Supercross. Who is he and when will he be back? We will break it all down in this hour. Do me a favor, if you're a nerd like I am, log on to nerdgasmpodcast.com. You can download and listen to the Nerdgasm Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, and nerdgasmpodcast.com. Whether it's what the latest TV series is, the latest Superman Batman trailer, or the latest comic book news, video game news, or tech news, Nerdgasm has it pegged. And this week, they're celebrating the 50th Nerdgasm episode. Log on to nerdgasmpodcast.com to join in on the fun. Nerdgasm, the show made by nerds for nerds. I'm Alan Bailey from the ARN Newsroom, and that is our Hot Topics on January 25th, 2016. So, honestly, there's so many things to talk about over the course of the next hour. Like I said right there, Chad Reed and Ken Roxon going to be checking in, talking about what happened out in Anaheim. Got a chance to catch up with them on Saturday out in Supercross. Also, Alan Johnson sat down with NHRA.com to talk about basically working for John Force Racing, how he actually was hired, and the process that he went through in order to get hired for that position. Plus, whose parts is he going to be working on? Is it his stuff? Is it John Force Racing's stuff? It's kind of up in the air and all over the place, but we'll go ahead and break everything down for you as best we can over the course of the next hour. Gonna talk about Supercross and about the riders who were kind of on the disabled list and just kind of going from there. Honestly, at this point, there's kind of more people on the disabled list and the hurt list than everything else. But I seriously want to talk about this. That battle that we saw with Cooper Webb, Christian Craig, amazing. I still cannot get over it. We saw an epic battle, and let me put it this way. How to put this politely? Christian Craig got out to a great start. Cooper Webb, let's just say he didn't get the best start at all. I mean, he was fourth on lap 4, but he was ninth at the whole shot. Just not a great start for him as usual. And that seems to be his MO this season, just having bad starts, and he works his way through the field, and then right there midway through the race or so, he's up there near the front, challenging for the lead and for a podium. And that's his MO. If it works for you, great, but really, you want to have a good start in order to keep it going. We saw Savechi go down at lap 6. He just was going through the rhythm section, hit a bad section, and he went down. Obviously, not a good night for him. He went down in the rhythms all by himself. But lap 8, we saw Craig and Webb start to go at it. Webb slowly but surely catching him. Then one corner, he goes on the inside, crossover move. They go through the start-finish line jump, side by side. Then another crossover move the next turn, going through the loops. Side by side, then they go through another loop, and it's another crossover. It was just crossover. They were so fierce. It was honestly amazing to watch. And Craig was doing anything he could to keep Webb behind him, because if you look at the lap times, Webb was the fastest basically every lap, by about a second every lap, except for when they were battling. They were right there neck and neck lap time-wise. But Webb, all night long, honestly had a better ride going, was clicking off faster lap times all night consistently. And if you look at their best lap times, Webb had the best lap time of the night, and Craig, who had the second best lap of the night, was about a second and a tenth off of what Webb's was. That shows you the speed difference between Webb and Craig all night long. And they were going through the jump side by side. They were blocking each other, stalling each other out, doing anything that they could. The crowd was so loud, I swear to you, from in that stadium, you couldn't hear the motors. It was that deafening, the crowd going that nuts. And that, my friends, is what racing is all about. It's about getting side by side. It's about doing anything you can, racing each other clean, yet not giving each other any space, any advantage to get in front of the other rider. And that's what we saw between Christian Craig and Cooper Webb. Amazing, amazing battle between those two in 250. And honestly, I can't wait to see that battle in 450 with these two riders in probably a year, the way these two are riding. Amazing run, especially by Webb, who really had to come through the field. I mean, what more can you ask for at a Supercross race? Seriously, you couldn't script this. You couldn't have staged this. It was just an amazing, amazing run between Craig and Webb. And Craig, I guess we could talk about the drama with him a few weeks ago in Anaheim. I don't want to. The fact that he's back this weekend was huge, and the fact that he was right there near the front was even better. So, amazing start to his season so far. Webb, 3 in a row. That makes it, 7, 8 in a row now in 250 because of his winning streak at the end of last season. But Webb wins it. Amazing run for him in Anaheim for round 3. They go to San Diego this weekend for round 2, or for San Diego 2, which is round 4 of 2016 Monster Energy Supercross. You can log on to airandrace.com to check your local listings, as well as keep up on the latest information for Supercross as well. Now, going to go ahead, step aside. When we get back, want to talk about basically everything we saw in 450 over the weekend. Dungey won. I feel like I've read that headline 10 million times. Nothing new there. He's Dungey. I mean, he definitely took his Wheaties going into this weekend out in Anaheim. That's all I can really tell you. But Chad Reed and Ken Roczen finishing second and third respectfully on the podium. But we're going to hear from Reed and Roczen. I think that both of them have interesting approaches as to why they're not challenging for the win, especially with Reed. I don't want to say learning from Dungey, but he's definitely riding near Dungey more this year than he did last year, let's just say, frankly, because Reed is having a better year this year than he did last year, and he's near the front where Dungey was for most of last season. So it's interesting dynamic, interesting question is Reed learning from watching Dungey, vice versa? We're going to get into it. We're going to hear from Chad Reed. We're going to hear from Ken Roczen. We're also going to hear from Alan Johnson, who sat down with NHRA.com earlier this week and really discussed and talked about moving over to John Force Racing for 2016, tuning that Top Fueler for Brittany Force in her 4th season in Top Fuel, and whose parts is he using? Is he using John Force parts? Is he using his parts? Combination of the both. And what's Brittany doing that's different in her training regiment? Is Alan helping out with Brittany's training regiment? What's going on there? We're going to talk about that. Plus, Kurt Busch might be running the 100th Indianapolis 500. We'll get into it. And you better believe that I'm going to be talking about Brian France being called out by Tony Stewart at Media Day. And might get a little heated. So do me a favor. Don't go anywhere. You're shifting gears right here on ARN.
Sick of bad race coverage or none at all from those other networks? Make ARN your one and only for all things motorsports. ARN, the Motorsports Authority.
It's the Nerdgasm Podcast.
I want to point this out, though. I think Kylo's getting you're getting a bad rep, Kylo, because he stopped a laser blast midair. He can suck thoughts out of your mind.
Yep.
He doesn't fear anybody.
Yep.
Takes a laser blast from Chewie's weapon.
Yep.
Not afraid to show his face. Approaches his enemies often. Fights while bleeding out in the freezing cold.
Oh, yeah.
And he's labeled a crybaby.
All right.
How is he labeled a crybaby?
The internet has labeled him a crybaby.
You know what?
Oh my gosh.
I'm not the internet. I don't know.
Kylo took a lightsaber to the face.
He did.
And he just gave the death stare. He wasn't crying.
That was blood dripping down his face.
Those weren't tears. That was blood, dude.
Exactly. And if you want to claim that it were tears, then it was clearly the snow all over his face.
Now we can set the record straight.
All right.
So, Kylo, no cry baby.
Download new episodes of the Nerdgasm Podcast every Friday on nerdgasmpodcast.com, on iTunes, and now available on Stitcher.
You must have thrown 1,000 pitches teaching him to hit a home run. Spent countless Saturdays running routes so he could learn to hit an open receiver. Endless afternoons teaching him how to hit the three-pointer. But how much time have you spent teaching him what not to hit? Teaching boys that all violence against women is wrong is one of the most important things a man can do. Learn how to start the conversation at teachearly.org. Brought to you by Futures Without Violence and the Ad Council.
Download and listen to your favorite ARN programs on the go. Download Shifting Gears on ARNrace.com, iTunes, and now available on the Stitcher app. ARN, the Motorsports Authority.
You're shifting gears on ARN. Here's Alan Bailey.
So it's not really a headline at this point, but Ryan Dungey continues to set the Supercross world on fire, winning out in Anaheim for Anaheim 2, round 3 of the 2016 Supercross season. Gotcha. I've heard it. I feel like I read this story last week. Oh, wait a minute. I did. But that's not the story of the night. Yes, it's impressive. Don't mean to take anything away from Dungey, but frankly, he's the defending series champ. He is continuing the amazing ride that we saw him do in 2015. It's nothing new to me. What is new and what is interesting, Chad Reed, who came home second, who, like last week, I'll tell you this, he's having a really good run, period. That's not even it. It's that he's got a lot to get through and get over right now because he did get on the bike late in the season, and he'll never admit it, but they're still playing a little bit of catch-up because most teams have the entire offseason to prep the bike and to get used to each other. Chad signed his deal days before the season started out in Anaheim. Actually, 2 days before the season started out in Anaheim. He signed the contract on Thursday. Friday, he was on the bike doing practice runs on Friday, and Saturday was the first race of the season. To say he's not exactly on the same page as everybody else, I don't want to say it's an understatement, but it's fairly accurate. And Chad will never stand up and go, yeah, I'm struggling, because he's not. 2 seconds, 2 podiums in 2016, and he had a top 5 finish in Anaheim 1. That's very respectful. And I don't know, do you want me to tell you, oh, Chad Reed's going to knock down the door and pick up a win here fairly soon? Yeah, it could happen in theory this weekend down in San Diego. He's had a lot of success down in San Diego. However, not at Petco Park, which is where they're racing this weekend. It's at the other stadium that they raced at. So what does that translate to exactly? I don't know. But got a chance to catch up with Chad Reed as part of the media roundtable they do after the races every week, and this is a little bit of what he was saying about his run this last weekend. Take a listen to Chad Reed post-race down in Saturday night down at Angel Stadium after he finished second to Ryan Dungey.
I thought that both of us didn't ride great at the beginning, like I felt that everyone made a lot of mistakes, so I know the track was tough, and seeing what people were doing around me, I know that obviously I wasn't the only one having some struggles, so take it and move on and try to be better next week.
Hey, you're a guy that excels in whoops. These ones are the biggest ones of the year, biggest ones we've seen in a while. But 20 last of them, how are you? Would you make them bigger? I mean, is it something that you think about at all?
Yeah, I think I want to say that I didn't feel awesome, but the whoops kept me in it. Yeah. And I like that. I mean, they were tough. I made a couple of little bobbles in them, but nothing. I was pretty solid. I like them. I'm surprised that they didn't cut them down. A lot of people were struggling, a lot of crashes, and I guess I like them. Yeah. They were a little sharp and pointy for me. I like them kind of bigger, rounder. But you can't be picky. It is what it is, and they were more challenging than years past, so it's a good step forward.
The 3-3 in the rhythm I only saw you do in the main. Did you do in the heat?
I had press day this week, and I didn't do it on press, but I felt that I could. And then I was watching the semi, and Pike did it, so knew that it was doable. It was on the back of my mind all day long, and truthfully, I struggled on that section all day. Hey, buddy. Just, yeah,
it was a really long time to get here.
Hey, babe.
So just... Stadium.
You did?
Don't worry about him.
Just on your Ellie Reed.
So I was actually struggling with the triple N.
Yeah.
And then I saw Dunn even struggling, and he started cutting down hard. But he had that gap on me. And then when Eli was right there, I'd just take a little look to my left because, he could clean me out really easy because I was kind of almost coming backwards on the track. So just kind of made sure that I was safe there. And then, the triple was actually quite easy.
Yep. Yeah. The last question for me, the swing arm mod you made this week, I saw it on your bike last week. This week, JGR guys have it. You like it in the whoops? Is that something that you like in testing?
They have it too?
Yeah.
That's funny. We had it last week, and Fiber ran it all last year. Yeah. So it's something that we tried prior to San Diego, and seemed like it helps a little. Helps a little with the drive and the whoops. Just these bikes, obviously, from production to factory bikes, they put out a lot of horsepower, and things start moving around. So pretty much every factory bike I've ever rode has had some kind of bracing on the swing arm. So I'm not surprised. It's definitely a different brace than I've ever had before. So going in, I didn't really have any opinion on what it was going to do, but I felt there was some positives. And it's funny that JGR guys are following us.
Are you having more fun racing now than before, or?
I'm having a lot of fun. Truthfully, the race wasn't that fun at all. I couldn't get a good rhythm. I felt like I made little mistakes. I struggled. The turns, like, they weren't 180, they weren't 90. They were the angle and however they were built. I really struggled on them. There was a lot of traction, but the traction that was there didn't really, it wasn't giving me the feedback that I needed. So it was an interesting track, a track that I liked, but it was really hard for me to be comfortable and feel that I could push. Like one lap I would get a good line and think, okay, that's it, and then the next lap I couldn't do it again. So a little inconsistent today, and it's part of it, But and to have a day like that and still be second, I am happy with that. It was a difficult track. The whoops were really, you had to respect them. It was up there. I would give it an 8. I think there was some slick spots and then some really, really good traction, and then some ruts and then a tough whoop. So it had a lot of flavor, and it wasn't easy.
The gap between you and Eli was kind of growing and shrinking. Do you think that was your pace changing or his pace changing?
Without sitting here and being able to tell you exactly, I think it was more my pace changing. My pace seemed like it went up and down, up and down. So I'm interested to see the lap board and see where I was kind of losing gap to Dungey and giving it up to Eli. So my opinion at this point, without seeing the lap times, is probably, I think it was more me giving it up.
Right. And you were happy last week in San Diego with the second. You still happy with the second?
Yeah, I'm happy. I really am. You, as a competitor, this is not my first go around. A lot of people think, oh yeah, he's the old guy and it's not normal, but I'm a competitor. I'm here to want to win, and I work to win, and I don't feel any different than when I was 21 or 23 or whatever it was. So I like to win, and I'm not. So you're appreciative. I'm trying to be more appreciative as I get older, but for sure I want to win races.
So you've maybe had less prep time with your team than some of the other guys. Do you think you're going to get stronger as the season goes on? Are you feeling like you're on the upswing?
Truthfully, I can't use that as an excuse. It's, I got my testing in that I needed to. I was on the works bike at Monster Cup. That was a fair excuse. I spent 3 days on the bike. Some parts weren't available to us at that point in time. But since, I want to say 2 weeks or a week before I went to Australia, we were able to get comfortable, get on all the bikes, the parts that I wanted to be on. And since then, it's really been the same. So I don't feel that I've given up anything. I surely haven't tested as much as what I normally do, but I don't feel that I'm underprepared at all.
I think you did get the whoops you wanted tonight.
Yeah, for sure. They were nice. I think maybe I only had maybe 1 or 2 bobbles, but when you got a little sketch, they were scary for sure. So, but they were fun. Every lap you come into them and you kind of perk up a little bit and try to take some time out of Dungey and put some time on the guys behind me. So it was my strength, but yeah, there's a lot of turns on the track.
How were they? They looked nasty.
They were nasty, really pointy. Bike wanted to move around, so you had to be inch perfect. And more than anything, I was just trying to get in, just send her in and then get the RPMs real low and not let the bike kind of move around. Anytime that I got in, not as good as I needed to, you open the throttle to try to move, and then that's when it starts spinning up and wants to go side to side. So knew what I needed to do, but for the most part, I think I executed, but wasn't perfect. I learned this race that racing's racing, and you got to be in it to win it always. And I think the good guys know how to get to the front, in the main event when they hand out 25 points. And Ryan, that's what Ryan's doing really well. He's obviously solid in the whoops and great in the turns. I wasn't close enough to get a bird's eye view, but definitely trading lap times with him, and not really, it wasn't like he walked away from me, like he kind of just inched away. So I know where I'm giving it up, because I feel it, like I don't need to see it at this point. All day I felt it. So it's just, we're not far off. Truthfully, I think it's a lot of me, like having a couple of seasons of not up front and not running this pace, coming to an event where you want to be the king of the event and be, stand alone on 9 wins. I put a lot of pressure on myself, and I think this year I have a lot of pressure. It was always nice to get on the podium last week, but my feeling was everyone was wanting to high five, and like that was going to be a once a year thing, and I want to be here week in and week out. So for me, there was a lot of pressure on myself to perform this weekend and to back up a stadium that I've been very good at, but I'm also in a stadium that I haven't been too bad at either. So, the goal is to be on the podium every weekend, and I want to win.
You could tell right there, and that was Chad Reed post-race after Anaheim 2 this last weekend in 2016 out in for Supercross. This is Shifting Gears. I'm Alan Bailey. I got a chance to, I was there when he was saying all this. A couple of questions were mine right there, and you can just, the thing that you can tell with Chad, he didn't have his head high, excuse me, he didn't have his head high after this weekend, because he felt like he didn't run a race that was fun for him, and he felt like he could have done better, and I kind of agree with that a little in a couple places. And am I saying he screwed up his chance to get the podium? No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying that he probably didn't help his chances, if that makes any sense. Really, you can tell right there that he wasn't super thrilled with himself, but he wasn't disappointed either. He was there. He was up near the front the whole time. He was running Dungey down for a little bit there, but then just Dungey felt like he kicked on the afterburners and pulled away. And yeah, Chad backed up a little. He was making a bunch of little mistakes, but he still held on to second and came home with a podium finish. Roczen third. Pretty good night for both of them. A couple things with Chad. One, when they were doing all the post-race interview stuff and we were sitting there talking to them, the thing you didn't hear in that audio was there was some fans who were kind of just up against the fence right there by the fountains, if you're familiar with Angel Stadium, in that grandstand seating out there in the outfield by the fountains right there. And they're just screaming and yelling. They have Chad Reed shirts on. They're screaming and yelling, "Chad, you're awesome! You're awesome!" And Chad waved to him a bunch of times and was pointing out, "Hey, I hear you." So, that kind of stuff. And finally, when he got his champagne, he ran over there and he squirted every single one of them and took a bunch of pictures and high-fived them and did a bunch of selfies and stuff. It was very cool that he gets it. He understands that the fans, us, we're the ones that helped drive his career and helped drive this sport, and he's very appreciative of that. And you could see it right there. I saw it Saturday post-race, and that was very cool. Another thing that I think Chad is doing, which is helping his good run, he's relaxing. He's enjoying himself, and he loves the fact that he has more family time. That's a huge perk. If you have your home life together and your life together away from the track, the on-track stuff just comes together, and you can definitely tell that. And there's a video up on my Twitter at The Alan Bailey, also on Instagram and Facebook at The Alan Bailey. Chad was walking the track with his son after the race, and his son fell, and Chad kind of dusted him off, zipped up his jacket, and his kid's sitting there the whole time going, "Ow, ow, 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 ow." And his son goes, or Chad goes, "Oh, did you hurt your arm?" And just the response between those two is just amazing. And that's who Chad Reed is. He's a family guy. He's training his children to eventually ride, I think, in Supercross. Heck of a teacher right there, you think? Very cool little video. Head on to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at The Alan Bailey in order to check it out. Now, going to go ahead and step aside. When we get back, going to hear from Ken Roczen. He had a bad start, worked his way through the field. It's another bad start for him, yet he works his way through the field and comes home with a respectable finish. What's going on with Chad right now? He said that he had the best offseason he's ever had, yet he's making so many misstarts on the start. starts of these races. What's going on with him? We'll break it down. We'll hear from Ken Roczen when we return. Don't go anywhere. You're shifting gears right here on ARN, the Motorsports Authority.
Take ARN anywhere. Download your favorite ARN programs on iTunes. Keyword search ARN and listen online at arnrace.com.
I'm in almost every school bus and classroom. You see me around the neighborhood, and you tell me that I'm a pretty good kid. Well, I'm one out of every 5 children in America, and I'm struggling with hunger. Please visit feedingamerica.org today and find your local food bank for ways to help. Every dollar you donate helps provide 8 meals for kids like me. We are Feeding America, brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
It's the Nerdgasm Podcast.
I want to point this out, though. I think Kylo's getting you're getting a bad rep, Kylo, because he stopped a laser blast midair. He can suck thoughts out of your mind.
Yep.
He doesn't fear anybody.
Yep.
Takes a laser blast from Chewie's weapon.
Yep.
Not afraid to show his face. Approaches his enemies often. Fights while bleeding out in the freezing cold.
Oh, yeah.
And he's labeled a crybaby.
All right.
How is he labeled a crybaby?
The internet has labeled him a crybaby.
You know what? My God.
I'm not the internet.
Kylo,
I don't know.
Kylo took a lightsaber to the face.
He did.
And he just gave the death stare. He wasn't crying.
That was blood dripping down his face.
Those weren't tears. That was blood, dude.
Exactly. And if you want to claim that it were tears, then it was clearly the snow all over his face.
Now we can set the record straight.
All right.
So, Kylo, no cry baby.
Download new episodes of the Nerdgasm Podcast every Friday on nerdgasmpodcast.com, on iTunes, and now available on Stitcher.
You're shifting gears on ARN. Here's Alan Bailey.
We just heard from Chad Reed, who had a very respectful night out at Anaheim this last weekend for round 3 of the 2016 Supercross season. And Ken Roczen came home third, and I'm not going to sit here and say it was a bad race for him, because it really wasn't. It was actually pretty darn respectful, but a lot of people were saying, oh, it just wasn't, great. And I'll sit here and I'll agree with that. Ken Roczen not having the best start to the season, like he always does. It seems like he's having a problem with starts. And Roczen pretty much addressed that when he sat down for his media availability after the race out in Anaheim this last weekend. Got a chance to catch up with him. Here's what Roczen said post-race Anaheim 2.
3 rounds, and I've just been getting bad starts. My heat race start actually wasn't bad, so we're just going to keep working him and working him. That's all I can do. I'm doing everything I can to be the best I can be, and that's all I can do. Speed's there, fitness is there, everything's solid so far. I'm really happy with the team. We're working great together, and we'll come back and be at the very top.
You can tell right there. He's got the confidence. He's ready to do this. He just keeps having little mistakes at the start, which is adding up to him putting himself behind the 8 ball, and then he has to spend a majority of his race getting up near the front. And by then, his equipment's a little bit worn, he's a little bit worn, and he doesn't have physically enough time to get up there. That's what I feel is going on with him right now. And it's just it's a bit of a mental block. It might be something going on with the bike. It's a little bit of A, a little bit of B on that right now, I think, but he'll get it together. You just give him a little bit more time, and he'll get up near the front. Just mark my words. Now, going to shift gears here a little bit. Want to talk about drag racing. Want to focus on some Mellow Yellow NHRA drag racing here. One of the big stories coming into 2016, obviously, the fact that Mellow Yellow has a new logo, which is pretty awesome if I say myself, using the PG version. They also have a new TV contract. They're going to be on Fox. Fox Sports 1 is where we're going to be seeing their coverage, and we're going to be seeing the finals every Sunday live. We will see a couple races on Fox, the Fox network, which is even cooler. But it's a big year for drag racing and for the NHRA. With that in mind, a driver which I feel it's time to start showing progress, Brittany Force out of the John Force Racing Camp. They've really built a top fuel program from nothing. They didn't have a top fuel program out of that stable, and they started one about 3 years ago. And now they hired Alan Johnson to come over there and to help tune those cars and to get them ready for Brittany. And what does this mean ultimately? Where are the cars coming from? or I should say, who put these cars together, and really, where are the parts coming from? Are they John's parts? Are they Alan's parts? Are they a mixture of both of them? Is Brittany doing anything different? These questions and more were answered by Alan himself. He sat down with NHRA.com and answered a few of these tough questions, but mostly and foremost, how did Alan Johnson get hired by John Force Racing?
I had got a call from my friend Zippy Mike Neff that runs their funny car program there. He asked me if I might be interested in helping them this year. Just here, probably 5 weeks ago, John and Robert called and kind of pressed the issue a little bit further. So John and Robert drove up here, and we talked for a while, went out to dinner, and kind of came to some sort of an agreement that should work. And I think we're all excited about trying to get Brittany her first win. The biggest thing was that they would allow us to come in with our own parts. All the things that we build here at AJPE that we've been so successful with, to bring those into their team and replace the stuff, because a lot of the things in their race car is manufactured there by John Force. And so had we gone in and tried to just work with what they had, it would have been a much more difficult task. But when we got the agreement that, just bring your stuff in and change everything out, because, we want to win. And that was kind of the ticket right there. We made a few changes. I think we're kind of focused right now on making the car more comfortable for her, as a new driver. She's got 3 years. But in order for this whole team to be successful, every team member needs to be comfortable and be able to do their job at the best they can. And so we're focused on making her really comfortable. We've emailed back and forth. I sent her a list of questions, so I could understand her routine, how she stays fit, what she does to prepare for racing. Explained to her the format of how we're going to run the team and what to expect from us. And so far that's been going great. She's really responsive to everything. She's really excited, and I think it's going to end up working really well.
Yeah, you look at John Force Racing, they tend to do whatever they need to do in order to win, and hiring Alan, who's just, it's Alan Johnson. If I need to say anything more than that, clearly you're listening to the wrong program. But Alan coming over and working with Brittany is going to be a huge key, a huge component for that team. Not saying that John didn't have the right people in the right place, but frankly, they started a program from nothing. And in that time, they've changed manufacturers. They've gone through this huge growth over at John Force Racing. Last year was, I don't want to say a bad year, but to John Force Racing standards, it was a horrible year. Even though they did rattle off some wins and they did make just the playoffs and everything, it still wasn't 100% of what John Force Racing is. And to bring Alan over, clearly they're trying to improve on things over there. They're trying to make things better. Brittany, ultimately, she doesn't have any teammates to lean on. She does, but not in her division. So you don't have that multi-car facet that you do have in other series, like they do in the Funny Car series with the Funny Car program. So you can just tell that things are getting a little bit better. They're really working on trying to improve everything for her over there. And honestly, I'm still amazed that she hasn't rattled off a win, because she has been competitive. And with how that program is, I expected them to win by now. And I do think that they're going to rattle off a win now in 2016 with Brittany Force and Alan Johnson working together. So just give them some time. They're going to be up near the front, mark my words. But it's not something that we can just go, oh, well, yeah, they'll get better eventually. So keep an eye on that in 2016. Now, Kurt Busch, believe it or not, that Kurt Busch, he might be running the Indy 500 again. Yeah, I think you've heard this one before, and he has that Indy itch again, and whether he scratches it or not, who knows. 2 years after finishing sixth in his rookie and only appearance in the Indy 500 to date, Busch sat down and said that it's definitely there. In May, it'll be the 100th running of the Indianapolis 500, and he said it's possible. It's very possible, and there's a lot of sponsorship opportunities with Haas Automation, Chevy, and Monster Energy, all at least reportedly interested in sponsoring Busch if he decides to do that. But he likes his day job. That's number one for him, and he even said during media availability this week, quote, "But for now, my focus is on Stewart Haas Racing, the number 41 car, and locking ourselves into the chase as soon as possible this season," unquote. So that's priority one. It should be for Busch, but it's the Indianapolis 500. If you're a racer and you're not thinking about a possible running in the 100th edition of the Indianapolis 500, you're insane. You need to get your head checked if you're not going to jump on that chance, or at least think about jumping on that chance. And if the situation arises that kind of works out for Kurt and kind of works itself together, it could happen. Back in 2014, he drove for Andretti Autosport, started 12th, finished 6th. Basically, team owner Michael Andretti said afterward that Kurt could drive for him anytime he wanted. And there's no formal decision on that. Busch may try to take Andretti up on that again. But if there's no room with Andretti, he wouldn't rule out driving for another team, I wouldn't think. But, I mean, who knows at this point? That would have to be a possibility. Kurt also said during media availability, quote, I've seen some deals get put together as late as May 1st. Mine didn't come together until March 31st. There's time to do this, but my biggest concern is the lack of competitive rides still left, unquote. He's got an absolute point there. If you don't have a good ride for Indianapolis, if you've got a ride, what's the point? And I don't mean to sound crass. I don't mean to sound negative, but what's the point? Be realistic. Kurt, in 2014, went out there, finished 6th in the 500. Great run for him. Rookie of the year. Great achievement. Strapped into the stock car for the day, for the 9-to-5 job, so to speak, and lost an engine 100 laps into that 600-miler. I mean, if you have to pick one or the other you're good in, I'd rather be competitive and go to my day job versus the fun job. And yeah, it's the 100th running of the Indianapolis 500. You want to be there. Yet at the same time, you got to think with your head. And that's something that I think Kurt is capable of. That's something that Kurt definitely can and should do. But ultimately, Kurt has to sit down and go, well, do I want to try to give up a win at Charlotte and a good finish at Charlotte, which I'll need in order to make the chase, or do I want to go have fun in Indianapolis? Honestly, if you're locked into the chase by May, if I'm Kurt Busch, why the hell not? I mean, you just start the race and you'll be okay. You can crash out or decide after one lap, yeah, you know what, I'm tired. I don't feel good. Because NASCAR's new rules basically state that, hey, you start the race and that's okay. We'll go ahead and let you in. And frankly, almost pretty much anybody who's missed a race, since NASCAR implemented their new chase format a few years ago, anybody who's missed a race or series of races has gotten a waiver. And Kurt can totally pull the whole, well, my brother got sick and he hurt his legs and you guys let him be eligible for the chase and he made the chase and won your championship. If I miss one race, is that a bad thing? But I don't know if you want to necessarily fight that battle. That's a battle that's kind of might be a little bit hard to fight right now. Let's put it that way. Little interesting. Yeah, let's put it that way. Okay, we're going to go ahead and step aside right now. When we come back, though, Tony Stewart making headlines again, calling out Brian France, my favorite person in the world. Not. So, what exactly did Stewart call out Brian France for this time? I mean, there's so many things you can call him out on. I mean, I'm being 100% serious right now. There's literally a bunch of stuff you can call him out on. So, I mean, what do you really call Brian France out on this time in media day? Tony Stewart is retiring after this year. They can't really do anything to him after this year. So, I mean, I don't want to say what's the point, but there's definitely that possibility. Don't go anywhere. You're shifting gears right here on ARN, the Motorsports Authority.
Sick of bad race coverage or not at all from those other networks? Make ARN your one and only for all things motorsports. ARN, the Motorsports Authority.
You must have thrown 1,000 pitches teaching him to hit a home run. Spent countless Saturdays running routes so he could learn to hit an open receiver. Endless afternoons teaching him how to hit the three-pointer. But how much time have you spent teaching him what not to hit? Teaching boys that all violence against women is wrong is one of the most important things a man can do. Learn how to start the conversation at teachearly.org. Brought to you by Futures Without Violence and the Ad Council.
It's the Nerdgasm Podcast.
I want to point this out, though. I think Kylo's getting you're getting a bad rep, Kylo, because he stopped a laser blast midair. He can suck thoughts out of your mind.
Yep.
He doesn't fear anybody.
Yep.
Takes a laser blast from Chewie's weapon.
Yep.
Not afraid to show his face. Approaches his enemies often. Fights while bleeding out in the freezing cold.
Oh, yeah.
And he's labeled a crybaby.
All right.
How is he labeled a crybaby?
The internet has labeled him a crybaby.
You know what?
Oh my gosh.
I'm not the internet.
Kylo,
I don't know.
Kylo took a lightsaber to the face.
He did.
And he just gave the death stare. He wasn't crying.
That was blood dripping down his face.
Those weren't tears. That was blood, dude.
Exactly. And if you want to claim that it were tears, then it was clearly the snow all over his face.
Now we can set the record straight.
All right.
So Kylo, no cry baby.
Download new episodes of the Nerdgasm Podcast every Friday on nerdgasmpodcast.com, on iTunes, and now available on Stitcher.
You're struggling with your mortgage. You think about it all the time.
What are we going to do if we lose the house?
It's time to stop thinking and start dialing. Call 1-888-995-HOPE for a free government program that offers expert one-on-one advice about your mortgage options. We've helped over 1 million homeowners, and we want to help you. Call 1-888-995-HOPE or visit makinghomeaffordable.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Treasury, HUD, and the Ad Council.
You're shifting gears on ARN. Here's Alan Bailey.
At the Alan Bailey on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also use the hashtag ARNRace in order to get in on this conversation. Like this one from Racehead2727. Alan, Kurt just should race. It's not like he's going to make the chase anyway. Hashtag losiest loser. Okay. I don't think that that's fair because honestly, you don't know that. He honestly had a good run last year. He made the chase. 16 drivers make the chase, and honestly, you're sitting down and you're basically asking, is he going to be one of the 16 top drivers in 2016? I do think so. I absolutely think so. I 100% think that he is. I think he's one of the top 10 drivers in 2016, or he will be anyway. As far as changes, Stewart Haas Racing did go through some behind-the-scenes personnel changes, but ultimately, I do think Kurt's going to have a good run this year. He had decent runs. Last year, he did have a win. I think it's 100% possible. It's 100% possible. It's just a question of if he can basically put it all together, which I do think he can. I really do. It's just a matter of time. Now, excuse me. Oh, boy. I need to take a deep breath, calm myself down before we get into this topic. Okay. I can do this without being too hypocritical. Tony Stewart said on Thursday that he was reprimanded by NASCAR chairman Brian France last August for speaking his mind too often. God, if he got a hold of me. Now, with that in mind, Tony Stewart told SiriusXM NASCAR Radio, quote, I want to see Brian France at the track more. I want to see him walking through the garage more. I want to see him being more active than just showing up and patting the sponsors on the back and going up to the suite. I want to see him down there in the trenches with everybody else, understanding what's truly going on. I think that's where he needs to be for a while, unquote. Now, Stewart referred to the Pocono meeting several times this last Thursday during multiple sessions with reporters, once noting that, quote, Brian France gave me a message at Pocono last year. Just because I didn't like something didn't mean I was right, unquote. He brought this up multiple times multiple times. And it just keeps going and going. I mean, he kept kind of pouring gas on the fire of this conversation. He said, quote, "Sometimes they need a little help making decisions. Sometimes they think they don't, and that's a good idea." He said, "Brian France cautioned me on making too many suggestions last year, so I'm going to try to keep my ideas to myself for a bit. There are some places that welcomes our ideas," unquote. Now, he's a member of the newly formed driver council that began meeting with NASCAR officials last year. Stewart does have a chance to voice his opinion in that form to the sanctioning body, but he also believes that the stars of the sport should be a little bit more candid, particularly in meeting with NASCAR's Vice President of Innovation, Gene Stefani. He was asked multiple times if France said what was wrong and what's going on with France, and Stewart said that's the problem. That's the problem for all of us, which is getting better. It's much, much better. I don't know if they're going to freak out about this, but it's got a lot better to where we have the driver council now. We have to meet with NASCAR more frequently. Gene's part of those meetings. The whole demeanor of the meetings are different than where Gene and I started and had this idea of going one way, and the rest of us were telling him they needed to go in a different direction, unquote. It's extremely interesting because basically and Tony Stewart here is referring to the meetings that basically has gone on between owners, drivers, and NASCAR, referring to the changes with the rule package. NASCAR had a clear set direction of what was going to happen, and NASCAR experimented with the high drag rule package that was really favored by the NASCAR Vice President of Innovation, and it was disappointing to say the least. And a low drag approach was favored by most of the drivers, such as Stewart, who were very outspoken with this. And the question is, why didn't you do this sooner? Tony Stewart continued in media availability on Thursday saying, quote, "I've had disagreements with Brian France. He came up to me at Pocono and gave me a hard time saying just because it was my idea doesn't mean it was right. And I sat there in my head saying, wait a minute, you're standing up for a guy who never worked on a race car, never been a part of a race team, and is now making decisions on rules packages and what's going to be and what it is going to be versus guys who have been driving cars for 20 or 30 years. So you're telling us that the smart guy, you're telling us that guy's opinion is smarter than what we all are? And that's where Brian France and I tend to disagree a lot," unquote. It's very interesting. Brian France and NASCAR kind of leaning on their personnel who, and to be very frank, how to put this politically correctly, Brian France took the side of his Vice President of Innovation, who, by the way, was a former GM executive with no racing experience before he joined NASCAR. I will repeat that. The NASCAR Vice President of Innovation has no racing experience prior to being hired by NASCAR a few seasons ago. He's the one making the technical decisions and recommendations based off rule packages and numbers he's seeing in a computer, versus drivers, engineers, and crew members, as well as owners who have had 30 and 40 years of experience in this sport and in racing. Way to go, Brian. Way to go. Way to go. Way to go. And Tony Stewart continued, "I picked up what Brian was putting down. He's right. It's their series. They've got to make the decisions. Just because it's my idea doesn't mean it's the right idea. But I'd like to think the 37 years I've been racing, I've learned a thing or two." Very smart, Tony. Very smart. France has said that he stays away from the Drivers' Council meetings because he wants drivers to speak their minds. It's a really good excuse not to go and not to pay attention, Brian. Very good. Stewart continued, "I'm saying it because I care. I'm not trying to pick a fight with him. That's why I'm saying he needs to be in the meetings, but nobody wants to disturb the apple cart. Nobody wants to make Brian mad, but we're all in it together. If it doesn't work for one, it doesn't work for all of us. Brian's got a lot invested in this. He's emotionally invested. It's what his family has built. I know Brian France cares, but I think there's a lot of things that get lost in translation from a driver talking to somebody in the trailer to when it gets to him. Who knows what it sounds like by the time it even gets up there, or if it even gets up there. So that's why a lot of us would like to see him there. Even if he doesn't say anything, we just want to know that he's hearing what we're saying. Unquote. It's Tony Stewart right there talking about Brian France more or less missing meetings between the driver council and NASCAR executives. I agree 100%. 100%. Brian France should be in every driver council meeting. And I'll be 100% frank with you. I've been to over 100 NASCAR races throughout my career. And even as a fan, I've been to probably another, 50 as a fan before I became a reporter and worked in the industry. And I think I've seen Brian France at the track once. Ever. I've seen him at countless sponsor events and things like that. I've seen him there tons of times. And same with Mike Hilton. But to be honest, I see him on race day. I see him hanging out in the garage area, going around, walking around, and talking to people. I see that often. I have never, ever, in over 100 NASCAR races, I have never seen Brian France in the garage area. Ever. I'm fairly certain he has no idea where it is. I'm fairly certain he has no idea what teams carry around week to week. I'm fairly certain he has no idea what the trailers look like. I never see him at the track, ever. I see him on victory. I see him on the main stage when it's a big race. I see him in victory lane when it's a big race. I never see him in the garage area, ever. He's never at the track on Fridays, never at the track on Saturdays. Occasionally he'll show up on Sundays. That's a problem. You're the chairman. You need to be there. You need to be involved in your sport. When you hire unqualified idiots who don't know what they're doing in this sport, you're going to have issues like a drag package. That makes no sense. And no, I don't mean to call out Brian France. I really don't. I'm just telling you, Brian, seriously, get it together. Go to the tracks, go to the garage areas, talk to the crew members, talk to the people in NASCAR. Because I'll be 100% honest, we have no idea you even exist beyond a boardroom. Pretty much, we see you in a boardroom. We see you in meetings when it's disciplinary or when there's an issue. We never see you in a positive light. People, you wonder why people are afraid of you and they're scared around you. It's because you're only around when there's something bad going on. Never when there's the day-to-day good. Never when there's the day-to-day fun of working in this world and being in this world. Never anything positive. It's only ever negative. That's the problem. You want to show that you care? Show up. Be down in the trenches. Hang out with the guys in the garage area. I'll buy you a cup of coffee. I'll buy you a hot dog. Just go hang out in the garage area. Just hang out. That's all I'm asking. That's all I'm saying. If it'll happen or not, who knows? And as far as Tony Stewart's concerned, well, after this year, you can't exactly touch the guy. So we'll see what happens on that front. Now, Trey Canard getting some tests this week in Supercross. Trey Canard went down a couple times this weekend. No broken bones, just some soreness. Nothing is sprained. He's day-to-day for this weekend out in San Diego. Dean Wilson, twisted knee. He's getting an MRI done. No results yet. We'll keep you updated on arnrace.com. Maxi Despy out for 2016 Supercross. Justin Bogle sore day-to-day as well. James Stewart day-to-day as well. He did not race in Anaheim this last weekend. It is possible that he'll be at the track this weekend for San Diego, but nothing is set in stone. We'll keep you updated on that one as well. Also, a couple more news and notes here. Regan Smith to Tommy Baldwin Racing's number 7. Alex Bowman unfortunately found out via Twitter. He was at the gym, checked his Twitter stream, and whoopsie, you're out of a ride, bud. That sucks. And then shortly after that, he found out that that Regan Smith was driving that number 7. Oh boy. Oh, not a great way to fire and hire someone there, Tommy. Get it together. Get it together. Unfortunately, we're out of time for today. I'll tell you this, though. You can download and listen to this podcast as well as other past episodes of Shifting Gears and other ARN programming on arnrace.com, also on Stitcher and on Twitter. We're here every Monday. We're going to have some cool NASCAR guests for you next week, so do me a favor. Listen and download every Monday on arnrace.com. That's going to do it for me today. From everybody here at the American Racing Network and Shifting Gears, I'm Alan Bailey. See ya at the track.
You've been listening to the American Racing Network, a Turn for Media company. This is ARN, the Motorsports Authority.